We are back in a different kind of way though. We're back with another episode, a visual episode of the Me Too Sis podcast. This is your host in live and living color, A. LaShine. What's good, y'all? I'm so excited that God has just allowed all of this to come together, right? Like, we have been coming at y'all in your airwaves where actually I think this either this week or next week makes an entire year that the Me Too Sis podcast has been in your ears. Can you say God is good? Like, not for once when he first gave it to me did I think that it was about to be a whole year later and we still putting out content. We're still talking and having relatable conversation. Like, mind blown. But here we are. And we are back with another episode. And this time we're coming at your eye gates too. Because I feel like it's nice to have the full package, right? It's nice to see it all come together. So welcome to another episode of the Me Too Sis podcast. So we're gonna jump right in, just like we normally do. Like if we were just sitting on the couch and talking and allowing the Lord to come and download what it is that he has for me and what it is he has for you. So here we go. So today we are talking about partnership with God. Partnership with God. And so I don't know if y'all are like this or maybe it's just me. That's fine if it's just me. But I have these moments, especially now where like business is doing all of the things, where life and work and ministry and all of the things, like everything is kind of happening fast. Everything is moving, but it's also taking real mindset to just be like, okay, but God, I know I'm not doing this by myself, right? Like it takes real truth and real reality to say like, you ain't doing this by yourself, sis. You need some help. And so in that process, I found myself asking like, okay, God, what's next? Like I'll do one assignment. And then I'll be like, okay, what's next? What we doing? Or I'll move in one part of obedience and I'm like, okay, I did that. Now what? And so it's been interesting because in this current season, I've also been in a space where I'm like, okay, God, I need to know what's next because stuff is happening real fast and I don't want to be behind the ball. So in this season, my what's next has been more about, I don't want to miss you, God. I don't want to miss what you're doing. So tell me what's next so that I can prepare for those next steps. Instead of like just being anxious to know what's coming. I guess it's kind of the same thing if you think about it, right? It's the same kind of visual or same kind of mental reasoning. Like, I want to know what's next so I don't feel in whatever your blank is. And so he sat with me and I sat with him and we were like, all right, looking at each other. And in my haste of asking what's next, he sent me to, I guess it's a familiar scripture, but more so around like resurrection time. And he sent me to Matthew 21, 1-7, right? So I'm like, okay, God, like, why we talking about Jesus and the donkey and how he sent the disciples? What they got to do with my next move, right? You ain't telling me go get no donkeys, are you? Right? Like, I'm really a little confused, right? So, he had me reading it, right? And I'm just like, a little help here? Can I phone a friend? Because what does this have to do with what I'm asking you, right? Anybody else have those moments like God will say, or you'll ask God a thing, and then he'll send you on a completely different route, and then you get to that route, and you're like, what does this have to do with my point A? This was not what I was coming to you about, right? Yeah, he definitely did that to me. Me too, sis. And he told me, he said, read it again. So I'm like, okay, I'm reading it again. I'm reading it again. Still not making sense. So I'm gonna read it to y'all, and I want, hopefully this will make some sense. But I'm gonna read it to y'all. So got my good paper Bible, as my good Pastor Trina will say. Yes, we are paper Bible saved over here. Okay, it reads, as Jesus and the disciples approached Jerusalem, they came to a town called Bethphage on the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent two of them ahead. Go into the village over there, he said. As soon as you enter it, you will see a donkey tied there with its colt beside it. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone asks, what are you doing? Just say the Lord needs them, and he will immediately let you take them. This took place to fulfill the prophecy that said, tell the people of Jerusalem, look, your king is coming to you. He is humble, riding on a donkey's colt. The two disciples did just as Jesus commanded. They brought the donkey and the colt to him and threw their garments over the colt, and he sat on it. So, again, right? We're like, Jesus said he was coming the way he said he was coming, and he did it, right? He fulfilled the prophecy, and he got his donkeys, and he rolling through for Palm Sunday, right? Cool. Lord, what does that have to do with my what's next? I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused, so I'm gonna need some help. I'm gonna need you to interpret. This will be a good time for revelation to come kick in, right? This is me. This is just me, right? I don't know if nobody else reads the word like that, but this is just me. So I'm sitting here like, okay, God, that's nice. And he says, read it again. And so I'm like, okay, I see they're going into Jerusalem. Cool. He said, okay, so what does that mean? I'm like, they went from one place to the next. He said, well, okay. And then he said, well, how did they know to get the instructions? How did Jesus give them the instructions? And I'm like, they were together, right? They were all together. And so he says, and I'm like, yeah. And he said, where have you been to hear your instruction? And I'm like, well, I have to be with you, right? Like I'm asking you for instruction, so that means I have to be with you to get the instruction. And this is what he gave me, the first point. He said, are you in proper positioning to hear from God? Are you is your life at a space where it's clear enough, right? Not saying that that's going to be crystal clear, but are you in a position that's clear enough to hear what the Lord is saying to you? To hear when he actually gives you the next instruction, does your life say, I have space and I have room enough to receive it? Or are we looking at Instagram? Are we looking to all of the YouTube pastors? Are we talking to our friends and our family? Do we have actual space to hear the downloads and to receive the downloads for those next instructions? And I'm like, okay, you talking. So what he did for me, again, these are just my instructions. He told me I needed to go on a fast. He was like, I need you to fast so that you are hearing from me and me only, period. I know you got a lot of great people in your circle, and it's a lot of good words out on Instagram, but I need you to come on and make sure you got space to hear me, right? To hear these next instructions. So that was the first thing. He said, are you positioned to hear instruction? And I think that's so important, because I think oftentimes we're looking for the answers. We're looking for God to verbally say it. But sometimes we forget the answers we need really are in the word, right? They really are real time in the word. And so it was refreshing to be able to see how he even spoke to me in what I thought was a very unrelated passage, how he was able to speak to me and literally give me not just the answer, but give me even context and understanding of how he's speaking to me, right? So I created the space and I made sure that I was in position to actually hear from him, right? Like, so we often will ask him for things. We'll ask him questions. We'll ask him for resolve and reasoning and all those things. But then we ask and then we go on and do other things, which can actually be, if we want to be honest, like, it's like, well, you didn't really want to know, right? You wanted to say you asked for the sake of asking, but you didn't really want to sit and listen and hear for what his instruction and or his answer would be. So he definitely got me in a heart check on that, just to continue to make space and make time and position myself, my heart, my mind, to really hear what he has to say about whatever these next instructions are. Because the thing about it is that we will move, right? In some seasons, like he told me, I have to move with timeliness and intentionality. Like, the things in this season are time sensitive. So I have to be in a position where I'm hearing him, and not just hearing him, but then not second guessing what I'm hearing, right? So like, what eliminates the second guessing is truly being in a space where I'm only hearing from him. And I know that's so much easier said than done. But I feel that that's where the space and the intentionality of like, God, I really just want to hear from you. I really just want to hear from you, because you know best. You know the way to go. And I know you're going to give me the right direction, right? So that was just the first point. It's like, am I in the right position to actually hear from you, Father? Nah, because I had Instagram going. I had YouTube going. I was doing all of the things and thinking I had it all together. And he's just like, yeah, well, here I am, right? So, and I'm like, okay, give me more. So now I'm intrigued, right? Like, now he didn't made those two puzzle pieces fit. So I'm like, all right, come on, give me the rest. And he did. So after he told me about the positioning, right, like how the disciples were with Jesus already. They were walking with him, they had communed with him. They were on their way from one destination to the next. Hello. One season to the next. Hello. One circumstance to the next. Hello, right? So they were transitioning. They were in transition, but they were in transition with Jesus. Hello. And so in that, he said, okay, now that we're in position, right? Now that we are moving, now that we're together, we're hearing, we're seeing, okay, cool. So he says, now I'm going to give you the instruction. You ready? Now I'm going to give you the instruction. And so I'm going to read the instruction so we can read along. He says, go into the village over there. As soon as you enter it, you will see a donkey tied there with its colt beside it. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone asks what you are doing, just say the Lord needs them, and he will immediately let you take them. So this is point number 2. When you are in position to hear, God will give you the instruction. And this is kind of like a two-part. Do not, under any circumstance, compare your instruction to somebody else's. Because while this was 2 verses full of instruction, he may just tell you to go. And this is what he did to me. He had to get me together, because I was so consumed with thinking I needed this point A, point 8.5, B, B.2. I'm thinking I needed my 2 full verses of what my instructions were. And he was like, no, I told you to do this one thing. So do this one thing. And I'm like, okay, but I'm about to do this one thing, and then what? Like, what's next? I was looking for all of the fluff, all of the wording, all of the dissertation of instructions. And even when I was reading this, I was like, see, and I even noted it in my other Bible, detailed instruction, right? Like, this is what the instruction is supposed to sound like. And he was like, you can't compare your set of instructions to what I said to somebody else, because you don't know why I only gave you one word, and you don't know why I gave them a mouthful. So don't compare your instructions and how he gives your instruction to somebody or something else, even the word, right? His instruction, what he said is what he said, period. And so whether that was one word or he gave you a whole page of words, what he said is what he said, and it's up to you. This is now point two of this. You have to follow it to the T. You can't just ask for the word or ask for the instruction and then he give it to you and then you have follow it. Well, you're not operating in obedience, right? So he broke that down and I was like, oh, that's good. That's good. Because I'm sure we've all heard, like, if God isn't speaking or if you don't hear God, he's not giving you the next instruction, it's likely because you didn't complete the last set of instructions. Well, that is factual. That is actually true. He's not going to give you another set of instructions until you complete the last thing he told you to do. And so in the mix of not comparing your instruction, when you get it, whether it's one word, go, do, be, or do this and then go there and then turn here and then flip over 5 times and then stand up right and then say, thank you, Jesus. Whatever your instructions are, you have to follow them to the T, because that's, and I think they brought this point out in particular for this reason. Verse 6 says, the 2 disciples did just as Jesus commanded. So I think that is saying to us, do just as he said. Don't add nothing to it. Don't take nothing away. Just do what he said. And then when you do what he said, then we'll get to the next point, right? Then he will fulfill what he promised, right? So I'm getting ahead. But it just really was making so much sense because I was hoping for the set of instructions before I moved. Before I went to fulfill those instructions, I was looking for, okay, I'm gonna do this and then what? Instead of me doing it and then allowing him to show me what was next. And he had to get me together because he was like, you're so concerned and anxious about the whole plan. He's like, but if I really gave you the whole plan, you absolutely would be overwhelmed. You wouldn't know what to do, right? And that's another conversation for another day. But he just had to put it in that lens to say, like, don't be so consumed with the details and the next steps and all of those. Just do what I told you to do on step 56. We'll get to 57. I just need you to come on and check off 56, right? So that's what he gave me. And then this is like point 3, but this helps with all of this, right? So when he gives you your instruction, right, you want a truth check. He gave me truth check instead of fact check. And he said, the way that you can truth check your instructions, right, like just to make sure that you actually heard them and all of those things. He said, I want you to compare it to either a word that I've given you, like a spoken prophetic word or prophecy, something that I've said to you, or something that's according to my character and my word, right? So those are 3 ways to check your instructions, if they're actually from God. Something that he has prophetically spoken to you, he's sent somebody to speak it to you that is a true, tried, and trusted prophet of the Lord, the mouthpiece that he has ordained. Yes, y'all tracking me? Prophet, his character, which is found in his word, and the actual scriptures and like stories and things that are in the word, right? Like those are ways that we can truth check to make sure that those instructions are really from God. And so he gave me that. He said, because you want to move with certainty, like move with confidence that this is actually coming from the voice of the Lord. This is the instruction from God and not just my own free will or the enemy or being influenced by outside surrounding voices, right? Like this is from the Lord. And he said, when you truth check, you have more confidence to walk it out, right? You have more confidence to walk in. And yes, I want you to trust me. Yes, I want you to trust what I said. But if you don't really know that it's me that said it, you ain't really gonna walk in confidence, right? You're not gonna really walk it out in the fullness. You're not gonna really walk it out and complete it, or you're gonna walk it out in doubt and fear and concern, and then you're really consumed and you're not able to see all that he's doing in every step. So that was good for me, because I've had instructions in seasons where I thought they were from God, right? I thought they were from the Lord, and turns out he just blew my mind, y'all. And I'm gonna have to do a whole nother episode about this, but he just blew my mind. And he told me, he said, you are following instructions that your anxiety told you. I didn't tell you that. I didn't give you those instructions. You were following instructions that fear was twisting to sound like it was from me. That was twisting to sound like I gave it to you. But in actuality, I didn't. And you have now created a whole narrative around things that anxiety and fear instructed you to do versus what I told you to do. Now, because I'm God and I'm able to use all things and allow all things to work together for the good of those that love me, I was able to use that time in your life to still get you to where I wanted you to be. But now that you are where I want you to be, I gotta take some scales off of your eyes so that you could tell the right story, so that you can tell that it wasn't me that had you in this bondage or in this fearful space. It was your anxiety that was twisted, that sounded like the truth, but it was not aligned to my character. Well, you're right. That's not your character. But I believed it because I was like, well, maybe this is best, right? God knows what's best. And so, no, it's not bringing me joy. It's not bringing me peace, but God knows what's best. And he's like, but I am the Prince of Peace. I am the provider of peace. I am the comforter. So why would you think that was me? But that was immaturity, and that was not being in a position to hear him. That was lack of relationship. A lot of things that I now know, right, in my immaturity in him, I moved again, thinking it was him, hoping that I was going to see the result at some point. And yes, glory be to God that I had. But he's like, you've grown up now. And now I need you to know that it's me. And you don't move on anybody else's instructions but mine. Period. It was good to my spirit, and I think it's important for us all to remember that. Remember and to be reminded who God is, right? Yes, there are some things that he will allow to happen that don't feel good. Yes, there are things that will happen to us that go against what we want, right? But again, it's not our will, it's his. But nothing that God does will take your peace away. Nothing that God does will be in an unloving manner. Nothing that God does will be that in a way that's not kind and comforting, right? Like, that ain't God. God is not out here to disappoint us. God is not out here to make us mad and angry and all those things. No. Now, yes, will we get mad and angry and take it to God? Sure. But he's not out here like, oh, I'm about to make them mad today. No, that's not his character. And so when we move out, it's just really good to make sure we are walking in his character. We are walking out instructions that we've heard him say before. He said it to us personally, or he's given it to us in the prophetic word, or he has given it to us in scripture. But the next thing was when we operate in what he said he was going to do. I mean, when we operate from what he told us to do, right? Those instructions. Then we move to fulfill those instructions. We fulfill them to the T, right? And then he's able to do his part. So this is the partnership, right? This is where the partnership comes in. So when we do our part to the T, he shows out. And I feel like God is saying, I'm ready to do my part. I'm ready to do my part. I'm ready to do the thing that I promised you. I'm ready to fulfill all of the good gifts. I'm ready to reward you in all of the ways because you've done yours. Now we can partner. Now we can partner. I think so many times we are so eager to hear the next instructions so that we can see the final, like we feel like that'll give us like a insight to what the final product is gonna be. And he's like, nah, I want you, it's your go, and then I'm gonna go. It's your go, and then I'm gonna go, right? That's that partnership. And so this is where he, in verse 4, he talked about this took place to fulfill the prophecy that said, tell the people of Jerusalem, look, your king is coming to you. He is humble, riding on a donkey, riding with a donkey's colt. What Jesus had the disciples partner with him on was actually to fulfill the prophecy that was already told, essentially saying they had to do their part. Jesus had to give them the instructions so they could do their part, because there was a word that was to come to pass. There was a word that was spoken, and now it's time for it to come to earth. It's time to come down to earth as it was in heaven. And I think that's so good. And I know everybody may not be well versed on like prophetic words and how it operates and when they come in, right? Like I know there are some spaces that aren't super clear on prophecy and prophetic. But I'll say this: prophecy is a word from the Lord. It is spoken in heaven. It comes down through the vessel, and it is shared because it is telling of a time to come. It is telling of an event. It is telling of a plan and a portion of what God wants to do in the earth. It is being downloaded. It is for a future time, right? And so Jesus came to fulfill the prophecy. The whole Old Testament was literally a prophetic utterance and a prophetic setup for Jesus's arrival, right? So when Jesus comes, he does every single thing according to what the prophecies were before him, because it's a word from God. And we know the thing about God is when he sends his word out, it will not return to him void. And so when Jesus came, he came down so that he could fulfill every single detail, right? And he allowed his disciples and the people to partner with him in bringing his vision to be fulfilled. I hope I'm not losing y'all. So when God gives you a word, when God gives me a word, he gives it to us in part. He gives it to us in very small portion. But this is now our opportunity to partner with God and say, okay, God, I know you said you want me to start this book. I never wrote a book before, but that's what you said. So I'm going to choose to partner with you, and I'm going to start connecting with other people who have written books. I'm going to look at the journals of all of the pages that I've ever written in my life. I'm going to start looking up conferences and just starting somewhere that says and signifies I'm me partnering, right? And I actually skipped a step, because the first part of partnering is, again, that making sure you're in position to hear him, but also have a relationship with him. So whenever you get a prophetic word, you should always pray into it. So I actually did skip a step before starting the research and doing the action steps. You should always pray into it. And so making sure that it was, again, from God, that truth check, you want to make sure it is from God. And so when we partner with God, we get the prophetic word. He's like, all right, cool. You agreeing is saying, now I'm going to pray into it, and God, you tell me what it is that I'm supposed to do to actually make this come to pass. When he gives you either more detail or understanding or instruction, then you make that next move, right? So now it's back in your court. So you see the bounce back, right? You see that we are not just in here in this life to just be finger pointing and God said do this, and if you don't do this, then you're going to hell. That's not the way that God works. He said, I'm inviting you into partnership. I'm inviting you into relationship. And he gave me this, and I want to read it verbatim because it was so good when he gave it to me. He says, partnership says, I've entered into a trusted agreement with one or more people, right? In this case, we're entering in partnership with God. I've entered into trusted agreement with one or more persons that will move cohesively and collectively toward a shared goal. I'll read it again. Partnership says, I've entered into a trusted agreement with one or more persons that will move cohesively and collectively toward a shared goal. What is the shared goal? To bring his kingdom from heaven down to this earth. What is his shared goal? That he will get the glory out of all things. What is the shared goal? For us to live in eternity with him, right? Those are the shared goals. And it's just a part of, all these little pieces are just a part of the big picture. And so when he invites us into partnership, the partnership is working toward the big goal, but it's also working toward being an author, right? Being a spokesperson, being a mother, being a father, right? Those are some of the pieces that he allows us to take partnership with him in. And I think it's really, really dope when we look at it like that, because it's like, hey, yo, not only are you God, you're sovereign, right? You gave us free will, yes, but you also gave us a mind, you gave us creativity, you gave us gifts, you gave us abilities, and you're not a God that's like, hey, I want to give y'all all these beautiful gifts and talents and things, but then you just don't use them. No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. So I just really think this was for anybody that is searching for your next step. You're trying to figure out how to hear it, what to do, how to move, when to go, all of the things. But this is also for somebody who believes that God is not really interested in your talent or your creativity or your gifting. None of those are true. He gave them to you for a reason. Now, the thing is, you have to be able to also stand in agreement. He already agreed when he called you. And now he's saying, okay, now that I've called you, the ball is back in your court. And you have to say, all right, I agree. But not just agree to do it for the platform, but to agree to do it the way that he's asking you to do it, right? Like, we have to be mindful and very, very intentional to do it the way that he wants. Because again, we are part of his plan. He invited us into his plan. He was here first. We got to remember that. He was here first. So we have to be able to walk it out in the way that says, okay, God, I agree. And not only do I agree with the end result, but I agree to the journey. I agree to the journey. And so this is for the person who's looking for the answer. Here are your steps. If you've been looking for the ways on how to hear it and ways to figure out what's next, here you go. These are your steps. But this is also for the person who's trying to figure out how to be used, how to be in partnership, how to even know that God is wanting us to be in partnership with him. He does. Starting with our lives, starting with our love, beyond the talent, beyond the gifting, starting with our love. He wants to love us. He already loves us. We only can love because he loved us first. And then he's like, all right, great. So now that we got relationship, Now I can send you out to go do some stuff. Now we can partner, and I can give you the resources, and I can give you the people and the money and all of the platforms and whatever it is that your heart desires. I can give you that because now we have a relationship, and I know that you aren't going to go out here and try to do it on your own because you know that I'm the one that gave it to you, right? So you need me and I need you. I need you to fulfill my plan. And when I say need, it's real light on the need. He don't need us. He doesn't need us, but he wants us to fulfill his plan. He wants us to fulfill this part of his story. Now, if you decide you don't want to do it this way, he got some other contenders out here too. And if they ain't out here, he can make them. But I don't think we want to have that conversation, right? I don't think we want to have that conversation. We just want to do it the way he says it, right? Quite cool. But yeah, he's like, I want you, come on. I want you to be a part of this. I want you to do it. And I want you to see the fruits of your labor. I want you to see how many blessings I have stored up with your name on it and your family's name on it. I want you to see all of that. But I need you to do it the way that I'm asking you to do it. Okay? All right, so on that note, I am ending it here, and just know that we are all in it. We are all positioned. My coach, she is the founder of the Position to Launch brand, and I think this episode was so on brand, literally on brand. Because of our positioning, we have to be ready to hear from him so that we can go and be launched out into those next instructions and assignments so that we can see his plan come together. So shout out to Dr. LaTanya Moore. Yes, get her merch. She's amazing. But we are positioned. We are positioned to partner. And we are positioned to do everything that he called us to do. And not just do it, but like really go out here and mess the game up. And when I say the game, I mean the stuff that just been making us think that was it. No. He's talking about bringing heaven down to earth, bringing the kingdom down. When we really do it the way that he wants us to, we literally about to mess the game up. So I hope you locked in. I hope you're ready to partner because we got some work to do, y'all. So remember, when you keep God first, you glow. And when you glow, baby, you win. All right. And until next time, bye.